Hey guys, David here. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. So a quick thing before we actually start playing this video, a couple of key things to sort of point out here. One, this is actually not a video for a live stream for my channel. This is from Mohit's channel, one of the co-hosts of this live stream that we had. I have his full support and agreement to be able to download this and upload this on my channel. So just so you guys know, there is his part of the live stream, which is the complete part. I cut out the first beginning portion of it just because it was an introduction and it was us testing it out, so I just want to save you guys some time. But if you guys want to see the original live stream, go ahead and check out his channel. There's going to be links down in the description down below. That being said, a huge disclaimer as well, this is a spoiler talk and spoiler discussion, so there's going to be a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't beat the game already or you haven't played the game and you don't want any spoilers, please don't continue watching this because we will spoil this game. So this was a really interesting live stream. This is one of our first live streams. So I want to apologize for the audio being a little laggy. There's some video things that were a little laggy. This is our first time live streaming over Skype, all that stuff. So I really apologize for everything going on, but I think it turned out really well. And I think it's going to be a great time. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel because there's going to be a lot of Last of Us 2 content coming out here, some analysis. This will be awesome to listen to. So make sure you guys subscribe, like this video, share this video with your friends and family, leave some comments down below as to what you thought about The Last of Us 2. And also make sure you subscribe to Mohit's channel as well. That being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. And here, let's get into this video right now.
So I guess what are your first initial impressions coming off of The Last of Us 2?
Yeah, so first impressions, oh man, where do I start? It was a roller coaster of emotions, hate, and just pressure to finish the game. There's really great parts of the game. I really loved the first couple of hours of the game, especially when it begins. You have Ellie, or Joel's talking to Tommy, and he's telling, backstory of what happened in Last of Us 1, how he saved Ellie from the hospital. That was emotional. I mean, it was awesome just to rewatch that and see how much Joel really cares for Ellie over that, the 18 hours or however long the first game was of you spending building that relationship. And so I'm like, okay, this is starting off great. Like we have Joel here. Then we cut to see Ellie and how there's sort of this divide between Joel and Ellie. There's you can sense there's a tension between how they're talking to each other. So it's okay, what's going on here? And then from there on, just even with what happens 2 hours into the game with Joel dying, there's just so much going on that it was awesome. It was entertaining to sort of see, and it was just be back in the world. But that was the issue there. After the first couple hours, it started getting really boring. I want to say after the Seattle day one, it became really just a drag to finish. The story it wasn't there. The relationships weren't there that I was looking for. Obviously, losing Joel, it was Ellie with Dina for most of the time, and it just didn't feel like I was really playing Last of Us 2. The gameplay wise and combat, it just felt like I was killing a ton of soldiers, and I just didn't enjoy the combat either. And so there are really good high points of the game, really high, really emotional, but then it became really just dragged out. And that was my biggest issue. It just became so dragged out that I didn't care about Abby. I didn't care about getting revenge. I didn't care about anything but finishing the game. Partially because I was trying to finish it as fast as I was, but partially because it was just dragging on for so long, and it was just the same thing over and over. You go to a new area, you scavenge, do all this, and then halfway through the game, you become Abby, and if you do exactly the same thing, you start off with no weapons, so you gotta find your weapons, you gotta find your medicines and your pills and pop some pills, and you gotta get your scrap and do that stuff, and it's just a repetitive second half of the game that was basically the start of a new game. And that's where it just became horrible, not just because Abby and you have to play as Abby who kills Joel, but also because you don't want it. They left us on an 11-hour cliffhanger. Why? Jesse gets killed, and they're about to kill Tommy and Ellie, and we switch over to Abby. So it was a huge roller coaster, and it was just insane to sort of. And Mohit knows this too. I would send him messages about different things I really enjoyed, But as the game progressed, like there's so much more stuff that I absolutely just pissed me off to the point that I was screaming and just mad. I was so ready to just stop the game, not play it anymore, and give up on it. Especially towards the end where um, you have to play as Abby to attack Ellie in that boss fight. At that moment, I lost my freaking mind. Like I was done. That was the point where I almost threw the controller and I said, I'm done with this because it is just I don't want to do this. Like she killed Joel and now I gotta go and beat the hell out of Ellie. Like no. And so I literally let Ellie shoot me in the face with a shotgun 5 times to see if there's any alternate ending that I could just finish the game right there, and that'll be it. So, that was sort of it, and then the ending was just long too. 3 hours to finish the game was just, yeah. So there's a lot of things I hated, but again, that was sort of my perspective. I'm actually interested to see what you guys thought about the different parts of the game.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that last part up, and I'm gonna kick it over to Ivan in a second here, and then I'll share like some of my full thoughts here. But I saw Sean Layden, the Sony, I believe he's the PlayStation CEO, right? The other day, or the head of PlayStation the other day, just kind of talk a little bit about how he thinks that the model of a 20-hour game or 20-plus hour game just isn't sustainable, right? A AAA game,
Yep.
Just isn't sustainable in the long run, and that they're hoping to go back and focus on 10 to 12 hour experiences. And I 100% agree. I should say. I think that yeah, there should be like a minimum length, but I think like especially as like like all of us grow up, right? We have less and less time every day, and we still want to experience these things, kind of like sitting down and watching a movie. So like what is considered an appropriate length for a game? You look at like Assassin's Creed, and just how long these games have gone. It took me like 150 something hours to 100% AC Odyssey, right? So it's just like, Last of Us was definitely long, and I don't want to go too far in depth in there. I'll expand on that in a second. But before I share some of my thoughts, I want to get Ivan's thoughts, because you're in between both of us, right? You're someone that you enjoyed the game, but you're also not like, this is amazing or this is terrible. You're kind of in between. So Ivan, what are some of your initial impressions, either on something David said or just on the game overall?
So when I first got the game, I was a bit skeptical because of what people were saying about it. But Mohit persuaded me to try it out myself, right? So my first impressions were, I liked it because you start off as Joel talking to Tommy, recapping what happened in the first game. So I thought that was pretty cool, right? I want to talk about Joel's death real quick. So like David said, Abby does kill Joel, right? But you actually have to play it to like understand why she killed Joel. But since like this is a spoiler discussion, I guess I can say what it's about, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So Abby basically killed Joel because to her it was her revenge against Joel. Like Joel actually killed her father and a bunch of fireflies, right? So for those of you who didn't play the first game, I would advise that you guys do before playing the second game, because it makes more sense that way, right?
Oh, I think you 100% have to. I just want to put that in there. Like, you got to play the first game before playing the second game. This is one of those franchises where this isn't something that you should just pick up, play if you're new to the franchise.
You can't pick up. The relationship that Joel and Ellie share in the first game is something that
critical.
You can't experience unless you play the game through. So you don't have the same impact in the second game.
I would disagree, but we'll get to that in a second.
So to her, when Abby killed Joel, that was her revenge. So I understand why she killed Joel, But in return, Ellie wants revenge because Abby killed Joel. So now it's also Ellie's revenge as well. So
Ivan, if you do need to take a minute, feel free to just kick it over to me.
So what's on it again?
Abby's revenge. So,
Oh yes. So it became Ellie's revenge as well, right? So that's where it all started. Story-wise, I think it was all right because in reality, it all started with what Joel did in the end, which led to Abby tracking down Joel and killing him. However, once Joel died, a lot of people think that Abby is the bad guy. Like they think she is the villain, right? And at first, that's how I was too. And then once you start to play as her, I think you play 15 hours as Ellie in the game, and then you play like about 6 hours of Abby. So the moment you play as Abby, you get to see how her perspective is, how she sees the world, and you get to see that she's not really a bad person. She's not as bad as you thought she was. She's just doing it for her own personal gain, which is basically everyone. Because if you think about it, what Joel did in the first game, if you played the first game, was he was doing it because of his own needs. You know, so in a way, you can argue that Joel was wrong for killing the Fireflies because they could have potentially found a cure, and this all could have stopped. You know, at the same time, during during your time as Abby, you meet all of these characters who I thought were pretty cool. Like you have your own like background. You got Manny, you got Norma, you got Owen. Basically characters who you see as bad people, right? But then you see like their daily life, and they're actually not that bad. Like I said, um, about the stars. I don't know if David talked about it. I think he did. But so in the game, there's this cult named the Stars, and I think it was pretty interesting because there are some games that kind of resolve around cults like this, but I was intrigued by their background. And in the game, you run into the two little kids named Yara and Lev,
Yep.
which was like along the game, which I thought was pretty cool. And the way that the way you know that Abby isn't bad is because Abby, who was part of a different faction called the Wolves, with the two kids who were part of another faction called the Stars, who are basically enemies. Like they live to kill each other. But Abby, had it in her heart to help these two kids, well, regardless of what faction they belong to. And that moment, I knew that Abby was like an actual good person. Oh, Joel's death, Joel's death, right? So the way
Pretty
that he
important.
died, like the way Joel died, irritated me a little bit. Because if you think about it, in the first game, Joel is so smart and he's so like skeptical about everybody. The fact that he walked into a house full of strangers, not holding a weapon, he looked relaxed. Simon looked relaxed. I don't think that's what Joel would have done. Joel would have been more alert and a bit more hesitant to just let himself in like that.
And that's
Maybe he
that's
should have.
that's the issue I had with how he died. Like I don't mind that he died. It's just how he died was the first time I played through it, I was really angry, and I thought I was angry because Abby's killing him, but in reality, it was more anger at the fact that the way he dies without any like she doesn't explain to him why she's killing him. He saves her life before this happens, and at first you see that she like when she realizes that's Joel, she's like, oh shit, like that's Joel. Okay, like was he helped me like save my life? So I thought there was gonna be some kind of like conflict between like should I kill him, should I not? Because he just saved my life. And then like they go into the mansion and she shoots him without even telling him why. Joe and Tommy just act stupid in that whole situation. Like the whole thing just smelled bad, and they were surrounded by people, and they instead of doing anything, they just were like, "Oh yeah, what's up? My name's Joel. Here's my social security number. I live right here." Tommy's like, "Yeah, come on to our town." Like, "Yeah, let's go." And like the counter argument could be that they've been living 5 years, 4 years in the town, but even then, like these guys are survivalists. Like Joe has survived for so long. He has been in this mentality for so long, and for him to do something so stupid as this, when the first game he doesn't trust anyone. He doesn't trust Ellie. He doesn't trust literally any person in this game. And for him to all of a sudden just trust these people and then get killed without any explanation, just the anger I felt was towards his death and not towards what was Abby and what was going on. It was like, this is fucking stupid. It was just like the anger I was feeling. Because it was like, why? And so that's. Go ahead, Mohit.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you guys bring up some really good points there that I don't obviously fully, we've talked a tiny bit before this. We kind of held off on a lot of our discussions just personally finishing the game because we knew that we wanted to, record something like this, and just try to have some more organic, rich discussion on here as to some of the biggest parts of this game, right? That frankly are causing a lot of controversy in the community. One thing that I really appreciate and I think was intentional about this game is they explore the way they build things up, is the way they tell the story is in a way where no one's right. Ellie isn't a hero. Abby isn't a hero. Joel isn't a hero. Like, I feel like a lot of the choices that were made, though they aren't maybe some of the best choices out there, in gaming history, and though they've caused a lot of controversy, I think that when you look at the fact that, yes, these games have had, like, this game has had the impact that it's had on, say, like you, on Ivan, on myself, right? Like, on so many different levels, that's good storytelling because it's forcing us to think outside of what we think should happen. And a lot of big franchises have run into this problem recently. So, like, I guess Avengers is kind of immune to this, but I know Star Wars has with The Last Jedi. And, there's I don't want to move on to too many outside properties outside of The Last of Us because this is about The Last of Us, right? And for the sake of time, I won't do too much of a comparison there. But for anyone, whether you live under a rock or not, that, like, there's a lot of big franchises out there that have pissed a lot of people off. Like, solely because of certain choices that were made from a storytelling standpoint that weren't in line with what a fan was thinking of when they initially picked this game up. So when Joel died, it's not that he died. That's not what pissed people off. It's that he died in a way that people didn't want, that they weren't expecting, that they didn't die.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, does subverting an expectation that players and fans have, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because we've seen it done well in a lot of different other franchises, but we've also seen it done poorly. So the question becomes, is this a poor way to do it, or is there a better way? And if there is a better way, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's an interesting point because, like, this looking more at, like, the whole story, the whole revenge plot, the fact that Joel kills these people. We understand that he dies because of this. Ellie changes her whole entire personality to go on this revenge quest, only to be broken down and left alone at the end of the game. And Abby to have basically gotten to the point where she gets her revenge, and now it's like, what do I do next? While at the same time, you play as Ellie, who just is about to go get her revenge. So you have this, like, full circle of revenge going around. The story itself is actually pretty good. Like, I enjoy that. It's just the execution of how the game played this out is what made that story a lot worse. There's so many points and times where, like, they could have explained what was going on. I know even just, like, Ellie herself, like, she knew about the hospital, and it wasn't a big reveal. It's just like, oh yeah, she found out in a flashback. I thought there was going to be something big from that, like, maybe she's killing one of the survivors and they tell her exactly what happens, and Ellie finds out, and she has that internal sort of conflict there. So it was just like, it felt sort of just yeah.
Yeah, off of that point, like, would it make sense for, for her character? Ellie's a pretty smart girl, like, even in the first game, right? She was in her upper teens. Like, she knows what's going on. They spent that whole game trying to get to the Fireflies, right? So they can, like, create a cure. Yeah. So when she wakes up out of being unconscious, it's right for her to have questions. It's right for her to question why Joel would take her out of there. So, like, was that necessarily out of character then? Because, like, that's just who Ellie is. Like, she knew something was wrong from the get-go. She knew there was something Joel wasn't telling her, I should say. And she did that at the end of the first game too. So it's not like it was a random choice. She asked him a second time at the very end of the first game of whether Joel was telling the truth or not.
See, but that's not the issue I have. Like, it's just how they revealed that she knew is sort of the issue there. It's just like, it could have been so much more emotional and so much more better thought out instead of just a flashback when we find out, oh, she knew this whole entire time. It just felt like there's so many pieces of the story that unless you finish the whole game, you don't have pieced together. It just felt really jarring at times. And for a game, I didn't appreciate that. As a movie, and this is like at some point I heard some people say, like, as a movie, I think this would have been awesome 10 out of 10 movie. Like, this could have been an amazing movie because of that. But because it's a game and you have your choices and you want to live it out, and for 25 hours you're playing this story that you're just, there's pieces to it that just don't make sense to you as a gamer, and you just can't feel the same emotions and get behind the same thing as you would in like a movie, which I think this specific writing and how it's developed and written would have been a freaking amazing actual sequel to a movie, but not as a video game itself.
What do you and Ivan obviously loop in here at any point? What do you think would be a better way to go about that? Because I personally thought it made sense. I thought that there didn't need to be a line between movie, cutscene versus like game. I thought it made perfect sense and it was a natural progression for Ellie's character. But how do you think that they should have went about it then, in your opinion? If you need a few minutes, I can talk about something else. But
I mean, I think it's just the structure of it should have been a little differently. I guess it also ties into the fact that a game, I heard this somewhere as well, and they make a good point. A game it gives you control and choices, and if that's the definition of a game, I don't know the specific one, but it's something about like having control and choices when you're playing a video game. In this one, when your choices feel like they're taken away, when you have to play as Abby, and I'll get back to that because Ivan, you made a really good point about this too, and I think this is like the biggest controversy really here with Abby. You're forced to play as Abby, and you're for people that don't like Abby and aren't in that situation, like being forced to do it just destroys the game for a lot of people, and it just makes everything so much worse. And so just the loss of choices, and I think going a little off topic here, Abby too. You said when you were playing Abby, Ivan, at first you hated her, and then as you played through her story, you're like, okay, she's a pretty cool character, she's pretty chill. What I'm seeing is that is such a risky move on their story writing, because I still fucking hate Abby. Like, throughout the whole game, throughout the whole entire scenario, I hated Abby. Not one time did I actually start liking Abby. She started off when they started that second half, she started off as an asshole. Like, she still was like, Scars, kill everyone, just kill Scars, blah, 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 full-on war machine. Yes, then she starts, like, finally building up, oh, they saved my life. Oh, they saved your life, but Joe saved your life, too. So, like, what is going on here? And so, I think it all depends on just the relationship you had with Joe, and I'll let you,
you don't have to raise your hand, sorry, you can just talk.
Yeah, you can just jump in
I like
anytime.
that.
But it's that relationship, I think, how much you hate Abby really affects how you look at the ending of the game. So, go ahead, Evan.
Well, I mean, like, so, like, I get confused because, like, you mentioned Joel saved Abby. I mean, like, I don't see, like, what do you mean by that part?
So, I mean, like, it felt sort of hypocritical that she talks about how Levy and, what was her other name? Sarah? Not Sarah. Yara. They save her life. They're Scars. They're the enemy. The same enemy that she's been killing for years now. Right. They save her life, right? And she's like, oh, they saved my life. Okay, I don't hate them. Let me go find them again. Let me go help them and risk my life and destroy everything I've ever stood for that same thing. Now, I get it's a different situation with Joel because that's full-on revenge and hate. But, like, saying that sort of just, yes, it's a redeeming factor for her, but also it just felt like there could have been so much more of conflict between Abby and Joel because he saved her life, but there wasn't. It just felt so unfulfilling. Meanwhile, these two complete stranger kids save her life that are the enemy, and she literally tells everyone that they are the enemy. Like, Owen's trying to convince her, like, hey, there's some good Scars. She's like, no, like, I gotta kill everyone. But all of a sudden, like, she changes her mind, and that was like hypocrite. Like, I get it, but also it just felt sort of hypocritical at the same time,
Well, I mean, like, Like I understand kind of where you're coming from, but at the same time, like if you remember that after their first encounter, Abby planned on leaving Lev and Yara. You know, like they were going separate ways.
Yeah.
It just so happens that Abby felt guilty because she knew that 11 Yara were just kids and we're not going to make it that far, especially on Yara's condition. So at that point, I don't think for her it was about factions anymore. I just think for her it was doing what was right because she saw them as kids. Like when she had a
Yeah.
dream, all she saw were these two kids dying or who are dead basically, you know. So, I mean,
So
like you might say, like it's factions, but for Abby, I believe it stopped being about factions the moment she had that dream.
yeah, to add
Yeah,
on to that before I
it did.
forget,
Because
But
because like during the game, like further in the game, uh, Yara no yeah Yara died, and Lev was blaming Abby that it was her people who killed the sister, and then Abby's like, "You're my people," you know.
yeah.
So you don't have any factions anymore, you know.
I mean, I
so
saw that, and like she does definitely change that scenario. And Mohit, go ahead and talk, but
you're good.
it just felt weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
here's
ahead.
one thing, just before I forget, that I think that a lot of people are missing because it's so subtle in the story, and this is like a storytelling thing they did, is because like the reason she was helping them is because she felt guilty about killing Joel. She would
Yeah,
never admit that, but that was like, David. It looks like you picked that up because you just nodded, right? So like
yeah,
they
yeah.
hinted to that a couple times, especially with her dialogue with what's his face, the dude with the aquarium. I already forgot his name. It's been a couple days since
Owen,
I finished the game.
Owen.
Owen, yeah. So Owen would, she was so like bent on revenge, and Owen saw that, right, and didn't want to get in the way. But like Owen brought that up at a later point, and then there was a sex scene. But like it was just like that was just something that was gnawing at her. She didn't like anybody bringing that part up because she honestly it seemed like she felt very guilty about giving into like revenge and killing Joel like that because she knew exactly what happened with Ellie and everything. Like she literally left Ellie in the same position that she was when her dad died. So like from a storytelling perspective, I thought that was actually a really good choice because again, the whole idea of this game is like there are no heroes. Like everybody has messed up. Like Ellie killed Mel, who was pregnant, right, and didn't even realize it. That's the first time, and then also killed Nora in the hospital such a brutal way, apparently, just off
That was
screen, right?
cool.
So it was
That
just
was
like, yes, like these are really cool, and Ellie was justified in her mind. Abby was justified in her mind. Like everybody seemed justified in their mind, and their choices were just like so bad in certain cases, but they've also done a lot of good. Like Ellie obviously keeping Dina safe, and keep like trying to just in general get justice for Joel, and then Abby trying to keep Lev and Yara safe, right, for very different reasons. And like there's Abby definitely saw Levy and Yara more as just like helping kids, but she almost had to because she had to make up for that sin of she had to make up for that sin of
Killing
just
Joe.
of killing Joel, right?
Yeah.
So then the question becomes like, okay, is anybody in the right here? Like, did anybody have a right to kill anybody? And like, it really is. Then you start thinking about the fact that maybe the story was done on purpose because revenge is bad. That's the reality of it, right? And like this game explored that in just like a very brutal way, but to show us like, look, nobody's right here. Everybody's fucked up. But I will 100% agree with David, something you said earlier about choices. I think that this game had a lack of choices that just like a lot of games, like this isn't just Last of Us, a lot of games I feel like put you on a path that you don't want to be in. So like playing as Abby after you kill Joel. As much as I enjoyed Abby's story, I thought that playing as her just made no sense because everybody hates her. Everybody who's played the first game hates her. No one in their right mind would want to play as Abby. The person that's killed Joel. Ivan, if you raise your hand one more time, I want to kick you off the stream. Just talk. I'm kidding. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Hold on. I'm almost done. I just, because I don't want to lose these thoughts. It's like, I lost the thoughts. I'm kidding.
It's over.
No.
They
Hold
flew
on.
out.
So, It's just that like you're being forced to play as a character from the get go. Like the moment when she confronted Ellie at the middle of the game, and you're suddenly in a flashback with Abby. Like, it made no sense. I love the game, and I actually really liked Abby's story, but that transition made no sense. So
Yeah.
like as much as I think the overall story was perfect, and that's why I call this game a masterpiece, because they did so much right. I just think that they could have moved some things around, kind of like they do with movies, but they just don't tell you that. Is like they shoot a lot of movies and then they move a lot of that around in post production, right? They move a lot of scenes around so you don't even think about it. So like, would it instead have made sense to have just maybe two separate campaigns, like an Ellie campaign? That's pretty much what they did. But
Yeah.
have the option to play the Abby campaign if you want, but you by no means have to. Or
They
maybe
should have the option
or
as, like, the second
maybe
option,
interchange.
or-
This is the last thing I want to say. Or maybe interchange the missions between Abby and Ellie,
Yeah.
so this way it builds up to something instead of like building up to something, suddenly stopping, playing as Abby for 6 hours, right? And then coming back to that point that everybody probably not forgot about, but honestly, I kind of forgot about
No,
it.
you
So, like,
forgot. You forget what's going on with the situation, and you make a valid point. Either two campaigns, or have it where you play as Abby in between Ellie's missions, so you have it intertwined together. So you're sort of keeping on the same schedule of timeline. Because I'll tell you right now, I was confused as hell, especially with the sex scene. I was like, didn't they just? Is this a flashback? Didn't they kill Joel? Like, isn't Owen and Mel together and she's pregnant? Like, this is like, what is, like, it just confused the hell out of me. And I think that was the biggest issue, was just you're so far into Ellie's campaign, and when you switch into Abby's like campaign, you sort of forget the whole entire timeline and what's going on. But we'll go back to that. Ivan,
one
you
thing,
had something
before
to say,
I,
right?
so Ivan, I know you have to speak, but I did see something in the chat, and there's some really good stuff in there that I do want to comment on, but let's leave a lot of that to the end. So, Yellow Flash God, I really appreciate some of your engagement there and some of the stuff that you're saying. I do actually want to touch on that because that's a really good point. Both of those are really good points, and I'll read them off to you guys in a second. But let's get to them towards the end. Let's finish up some of our initial impressions, and then we'll get to some stuff in the chat. So, Ivan, go ahead.
So, based on what you just said, right, about how she feels like she has to pay for her sins, that's exactly what she told Lev and Yara when they asked her why she helping them. You know, she felt like she had an obligation to like help them out because she didn't want any more of that regret or remorse or that burden. You know, so basically what you said just confirmed what she felt, right? At the same time, I feel like a lot of people don't like the second game because the first game was just that good that the second game couldn't improve because everyone fell in love with the first game, you know, with all that relationship. So since that people fell in love with the relationship between Ellie and Joel, they didn't care about Abby because they just wanted to focus on Ellie and Joel, right?
Yeah.
So I understand where they're coming from as well, and yeah.
No, that's an interesting point, and that's something that I somewhat had a problem with. It's not that they killed Joel; it's the fact that we waited 7 years to have that relationship between Joel and Ellie. Like, the first game, without the relationship between Joel and Ellie, like, there's literally nothing else. It's a typical zombies game, typical scenario, like, story. Everything's basically the same as any other survival horror, zombies, action, whatever you want to call it. The relationship between Joel and Ellie is what made Last of Us 1 such an awesome game. Like, I've watched, when I didn't have a PlayStation, I watched the walkthrough 4 times in a row. I played the game 3 times. Like, I love the relationship, how Joel, who is a hard ass, he doesn't sort of take, he's suspicious of everyone. He lost his daughter, all of a sudden become a father figure for Ellie. And I just wish they would have added a little bit more time in the second game of really Joe and Ellie bonding. I know they had the flashbacks, and those were probably the best parts of the game, was having that flashback of just seeing that relationship as a younger Ellie and Joel. But I wish there was, before they killed him off, I get they killed him off for this whole entire plot, and you know what, I can accept that, but the fact that they sort of didn't expand the relationship, or didn't try to expand that relationship in the first part of the game, or just have us like have a section where we're playing together again, I think that's a huge part that a lot of people were pissed off about, because you see like in the trailers too that they were revealing a lot of people are mad because there's scenes where how you see Jesse grabs Ellie and like hides her and he's like, I'm not gonna let you do this by yourself. In the trailer, it was actually Joel who did that same thing, right? So the fact that they hid so much of like people were excited to have that relationship with Joel and Ellie back, and all of a sudden like 2 hours in, you find out you're not gonna have that relationship. You're gonna play as Ellie, the killer. I think that's the biggest issue. Like I said, the story, I like the story, but as a game perspective, from perspective of like a part 2 sequel, I think a lot of people really would have appreciated having that relationship, because without that relationship, the first time playing through, it was just another video game, another story, another zombie experience where you just play. And that's why I hated the combat. I hated everything, because it was like I don't have that relationship building. Like, yes, there's Abby and these new characters, but there's no relationship development. I didn't feel I still hate every Abby and all her friends except for Owen. Owen was the one person
I liked Owen.
I think that did an awesome job on Owen. Really, like, you see that he thinks differently. He's like, why are we killing these people? Like, why? Like, don't torture Joel. Like, he's trying to help Abby throughout the whole game to sort of get herself off for revenge.
Again, I think that was intentional. Like, that's the thing, is like they wanted you to think that way. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted you to have that impression.
I get that, and that's why it's so tricky, because I get why they did it and why they went with the route that they did, but it's also like it's so frustrating, because this is why I think the second game should have been the third game. This should have been a trilogy. I think this could have been a great way to finish off the series and show that, like, even have the end, like, Ellie either kills or doesn't kill Abby, but she's at the end of the day, so like she's destroyed. That's it. Like, she ruined her life. That could have been a great ending for the trilogy. But the second game should have had that Joel Ellie experience. They should have brought that, because that's what people wanted from the game. That's why people wanted a second sequel, is because the relationship that we created. And when you destroy it so fast, after 7 years of people waiting for this game, hyped up, it just destroys your whole entire expectations, and it's a risky plot, because yes, you have Abby. Now it's like, okay, you have to start, like, you hate Abby in the beginning, and towards the end you start liking Abby, you start understanding her, and that's a good idea if it works. But if it doesn't work, in my situation where you still hate Abby, and at the end of the game, at that point I was like, you know what, like, I get it, like, Abby looks defeated, I probably wouldn't kill her, but that was like 20% of my brain. The other brain was like, you know what, I don't even care, just fucking kill her right now, get the shit over with, because I'm done with this game. I just want this to end. This ending, like, right. 2 hours into, like, that was the issue there. But
here's the thing, this actually leads to something much bigger, and it seems a lot of your issues stem from not like this being like the way it is, but like you said it yourself, like, this makes more sense as a movie than a game. And a lot of people in any franchise, and a lot of Sony exclusives too, have pointed this out, doesn't make sense for games to be going the route of that cinematic storytelling, because like there's going to be some sacrifices here and there, and choices is one of them. So like the thing you brought up about lack of choices in The Last of Us 2, a lot of that is the result of cinematic storytelling, because you can only go one or two ways. Like, if you're going to do very cinematic storytelling, there's going to be a linear path. That's just, that's unavoidable. So
I think if they shortened the game, it could have worked.
I agree, the game could have been shorter.
I think that was the biggest issue. And that's where I think
2 separate campaigns could have helped. So the one thing I want to bring up is and then we'll get to some comments, and then we're going to touch on a couple more things. Again, feel free to kind of chime in here and there. I feel like the ending at least could have been a choice for you, the player.
Yeah.
Because like there was that build up to killing Abby. I personally wouldn't have killed Abby either. Not because I like Abby, but my brother just commented, and so did Ivan's brother. Both of them were like, they haven't finished the game, but they agree with us. But I wouldn't have killed Abby at the end, not because I like Abby, but because just like look at you see what's happened to her over the course of the game, and you also see what's happened to her at the end. It's ridiculous.
I feel like when you're playing it, at least when I played it, I was just tired at that point. Like I was
No,
just
yeah, and
exhausted
that's
of
the
this
point.
back and
No,
forth.
not from a player standpoint. I think that like, okay, so I get that. For me, I was actually really looking forward to killing her, but the more like the closer you get to killing her, you just feel worse. Like, and I think that was the point. The way the story was told, it just makes you feel like at least it made me feel kind of bitter about trying to get that revenge because Ellie already killed all these people like in some of the worst ways possible. I didn't want to kill Owen even before the Abby stuff. Like I liked Owen in the few scenes he had. By the time you kill him, like
I mean, that was Owen's
and like
fault.
and
Owen
like
he was stupid.
and like killing Mel, killing Nora, like just all this, like you just start to like not agree with Ellie over time, and then like though I don't agree with Abby, I thought Abby was stupid. Like I mean, she was like for months just on that little pole or whatever, starving to death and everything, and like it's like what's the fun in killing her now? It's not even like she's right and I don't want to kill her, but like what's the fun in it now? They just took the fun out. So like then the question, so like the way they did it, they should have at least presented a choice when you were choking her out. Like, okay, instead of Ellie just letting go, it was like let go or keep going. You know what I mean? Like, and hey, maybe you could have multiple parts in that fight where you have to decide whether you want to keep going or stop, right? So this just again, you could brutalize as much as you want, but there's gonna be a certain point where you do have to kill her or you don't. So I think a choice could have really helped, like tremendously.
I think that would have been an awesome sort of choice for the player as well. And playing as like both characters and seeing like because like when I say tired, like it's the same like sort of like you were talking about, right? It's like this like you still like sort of hate Abby, you want her to die, but it's also like you know what like of all everything that went on with the game, like this is finally it. Like you wasted all like Ellie wasted all this time. She lost everything. Like now it's up to the player. Do you want to still continue and kill her, or do you want to stay? Like that would have been. I think that could have been awesome. Just sort of ending for the player as well, and giving because it's a game, because it's an actual game. Like having that choice would have been so much better.
Ivan,
than just like
you look like you wanted to say something there. Once you do, I'll go out and get to some of the chat stuff right after that because we're running at about an hour now. So. Yeah, it looked like you wanted to say something there.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, right? If you think about it, I think the game was basically setting up another Joel and Ellie, but as Abby, you know. So I think when the game ended, that was the end of Ellie's story, and it's beginning like you know Abby and Lad's story. About the ending, right? I believe that the ending was more of a symbolic meaning behind it more than direct. Like, if you take it directly, I think you will be left unsatisfied. But if you actually look at the meaning behind it, or the symbolism behind it, you'll actually enjoy the ending because mid game, right? You can see Ellie's character change drastically, right? She was consumed by vengeance. When she was with Jesse in that one mission, they heard gunshots, and they're talking about if that could be Tommy. Jesse wants to go check if that was Tommy and if he was okay, and if he was in trouble, we could go help him. Ellie, on the other hand, was basically arguing that Tommy's fine, he's a big guy, like he'll be fine, right? So you can see that she's driven by like revenge, like she's not herself anymore. But like in the ending, like despite all those deaths, you can see exactly how she changed based on how it ended. Like to me, that's symbolic, you know.
Yeah.
Because Elle's character also changed at the end. The ending at the barn was also pretty sad with the potato, JJ.
Yeah.
All right.
I think like a good part would have been to finish out before the 3 hour mark. I think that could have been in some way, shape, or form that could have been a great ending too. Just finishing off when like you know it's over, like just saying that like Ellie just like she gives up. She's like, you know, like I get why they did it because now it's like Ellie has to get rid of that revenge thought. But like it just felt more fulfilling with like Ellie, Dina, they have kids, like they just let it all go instead of like, oh no, let's spend 3 more hours killing some more people just to then not kill Abby. And I like your point, Abby, with like the Joel and Ellie situation with Abby and Lev. And I think that's one of the reasons why she didn't end up killing her is because like she saw that like saying like if I kill Abby, Lev is going to he might grow up resenting me, and it's gonna be just this huge circle. And to break that circle, you gotta sort of make that sacrifice of letting them go. But it's more you had something to say too, right?
Yeah, 100%. For the sake of time, I feel like this is great. I feel like we could go on forever after this, and we may like after the stream ends. But I definitely want to leave this like by like maybe the hour and a half mark, just for the sake of like viewers too. We don't want to. If people do want more, feel free to let us know if you guys really did enjoy this, and we can continue having like maybe a more expanded discussion at a later time. But I did want to get to some of our comments here. Because we have, we have Ivan's little brother that said something that we'll touch on a little bit later. But we do have the Yellow Flash God. Really appreciate you, whoever you are, for just leaving a couple things that I think could really add to this discussion and honestly are worth talking about. These are some really good points. So let me look back at the first thing that he said. He said quite a few things, and we may not get to everything, but let me see what might be worth expanding upon. Something that we haven't talked about yet. So Yellow Flash God said that she really betrayed the people she lived with for 5 years and killed them for a kid she knew for 4 days. David, I think you would be best to talk about that. I think you share a lot of the same insights there, so I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I really like everything. I read the comments right now that he says because I think we're sort of thinking the same thing. I mean, to me, that didn't really bother me too much. I feel like that was a point where Abby realizes that like what she was doing wasn't good,
killing
like just
kids.
killing.
It's not right anyway.
And she realized,
made sense to me.
Just in general, she realized that like like screw like both like the scars and the wolves, like screw them all. Like you're my family, and Ivan, you touched about that too, right? You're just like you're my family, you're my real culture. I don't know what she said exactly. What did you say?
You're my people.
You're my people. Yeah. And so like you see like okay, like Abby is sort of like changing throughout that scenario. She like realized that hey, like I've been killing these scars, and like why like they're not just the only bad people. Like both sides are just acting stupid and fighting each other, and I think it was interesting that she did that because it's a full like 180 to her personality in the beginning. But I did also it was weird because I was like yeah like she's literally killing her own people, like the same person that was so dead set on her people and killing scars and getting revenge, all of a sudden is like, oh yeah, you know what? We can chill. We shared some heights scenarios and the back and forth between the climbing the crane, which was an awesome part of the game. She's like, hey, you know what? You're better than basically Nora, Owen, Mel, and whoever else was in the scenario. So I liked it, but yeah, it's something that you guys start thinking about. It's like, yeah, like she just sort of just like flip 180. So it's interesting.
Well, I mean, also another interesting thing as well is when Abby actually brought back Lev and Yara to the aquarium, and Mel and Owen, who are also wolves, decided to help the two scars. I don't know if you can still call them scars. I wouldn't call them scars anymore because at this point they're no longer in the cult. But the fact that Mel, Owen decided to also help these two kids who were part of a rebel faction also showed that these people were starting to realize that the factions literally mean nothing because everyone is trying to do is to survive, basically.
I think the biggest help though was Owen. I think that's where like Owen comes in.
Yeah.
And even like after that sex scene, like when she falls back in love with him, like I feel like that was supposed to be a transition where like she realizes like, oh my god, like, I might care for like these kids, and like it's not just about like because Owen was never about that. Like he didn't really care about the different cults and factions and everything going on. Like you see that he killed his own teammate just to save this I think it was an old guy from the Scars, and so like you see that his influence on her, and that's why I love Owen so much, is because he was very similar to how I think he's like it's sort of like this, you take both sides of the opinion, and you like listen to every perspective, and so like he was really open-minded, and he was trying to cover Abby. I think that was thanks to him that he sort of was able to finally get her to be like, oh yeah, you know what? Let me go help these kids and redeem myself and feel better.
I 100% agree. I do want to move on to something else that the Yellow Flash God said, just because I think I could really expand on this one. I think it was a pretty good point. One thing before I do that, I want to clarify. Let's not call them scars. They're seraphites. I just want to say that right off the bat. We got to be like technically correct, because like, listen, these kids had to make that clear countless times throughout the game. I'm kidding.
I just can't say terrified, so like I forget the name.
No, it was really good. I think I really like that though, because like it and again, I don't want to expand on that too much, but it shows that, listen, like these are like people too, you know, like they follow a religious thing that, you know, obviously Abby's group doesn't agree with, like the Wolves don't agree with, but like, listen, like they're their own people. They're not scars or whatever they want to nickname them as, right? So it was interesting to see that side. But for the sake of time, there's one other comment from the Yellow Flash I thought that was really important to talk about. It's like Abby didn't even know about Nora or those that half her friends were dead. You know, she could have killed them herself for all she knew. So like that is one issue I've had, and I'm going to talk about this just for a tiny bit here. That with the Abby section that I was really looking forward to. Like I really did enjoy the story with Yara and Lev, right? I thought it was cool. I thought it was a great story to go. That whole scene from E3, I think it was 2018 or whatever, they were, she was captured. That part was really dope. But like I was expecting some crossover with some of the events that you just spent 9 hours playing through with Ellie. Like there was no crossover. Like you went to the hospital like right before everything happened with Ellie, and that was probably the closest we got. But what happened to like just the idea of like lost my train of thought there. What happened to some of that?
That was an issue I had really quick, was that it felt like the first like half of Abby's campaign was just like
it was filler.
Like
it was all filler.
Yeah, how does it connect to the actual story and like what's going on with Ellie? Like it just like I honestly didn't even know what the timeline was at some points. I was just like, what is going? Like, is this before, after? Like, what is like?
Seen her come across the things that Ellie's done throughout her campaign, at least.
Yeah.
So this way, because it felt so random at the end. Like, okay, she found Owen and Mel dead, and that's when she found the map and realized it, right? But would it instead have been a little bit better if we got to maybe people would have appreciated Abby's side a little bit more if they saw what Ellie was doing? Like throughout the whole game from Abby's point of view, instead of just like everything being right at the end. Because like, I mean, there could have been some really cool ways that they went about that. Like maybe like Abby was like got to observe Nora's death, or like like, because we didn't, as a player, we didn't get to see Nora's death. Like so I my initial thought when we switched to Abby was, oh, we're gonna be able to see that from Abby's perspective. Maybe she was in an event or something, or maybe she was like chasing Ellie down and we didn't know about that. There's certain like gaps there in Ellie's story that I thought were going to be explored in Abby's section, and they weren't. So like, as much as I appreciated Abby's story, and I don't think it should have been longer, I think that a lot of that, like you said, David, that first half could have been taken out, kept the kids part, but along with that, maybe had her come across some of the things, if not Ellie herself, just some of the things that Ellie has done, and that becomes one of her goals throughout her campaign, is to find Ellie, right?
She knew about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, if you think about it, right, like, she knows Danny died. Danny was the first one she found out died. Norma showed
her. It was so subtle, though. It was so subtle.
Like, she didn't care about that. She was like, okay.
Yeah, so there was Danny. There was Manny, Tommy shot. So she witnessed Manny die. She saw Owen and Mel dead. So I think the only one she didn't see dead was actually Norma, if you think about it, because Danny was dead, and then Manny, and then Mel and Owen. So the only body she didn't see was really Norma.
I guess, but
like she just assumed that Ellie was behind it all, considering.
It wasn't like she didn't feel any emotions towards it though. Like she was like, "Oh, Danny died. Good. I hated that fucker," or something like that. She like said something like that. She was like, "Okay, good." Like I
think that's her first swear this entire stream. I was honestly expecting a little bit more.
Mine?
Not for kids. Once again, disclaimer.
3 times back, but
okay.
I mean, it's like she didn't seem to have like any emotions for. And I get Manny because Manny, that happened. He had a battle. And so like yeah, like she does get mad, and then like it sort of just ends there. I just wish it would have been more like tearing, or like you felt like this anger build up in her to the point, because like my issue, because my issue was that she got really mad, where like you play her story, right, and she starts like finally being like, okay, calm down, like she saves the kids, like you see like she's starting to become reasonable, and then like she finds out Owen and Mel are dead, and she goes to fight Ellie, and she's pissed, and she kills Jesse right away, which is that was via scene as well. And then like she shoots Tommy, which I think Tommy should have died at that point, because I mean that was stupid as well. But what I'm trying to get at is that like I would have thought that when she gets there, she would have had more of a conversation with Ellie and tried to sort of like have that
100%.
conversation, because you find out that like Abby has grown up, like she's changed as a character. She's not like full of hate and revenge. Now she's just like trying to like live her life, and I think part of that could be because Owen died, and that connection to her like having like a normal life and like understanding other sides. Maybe that snapped at that point too. But like I was expecting more of like, yeah, she's pissed, but like, hey, let's like have a truce. But then you see like Dina attacks her, and as Ellie's like she's pregnant, like this chick is like good and about to slice her throat. And I think that was like it brought back like Abby is not the same good person as like Ellie. Like Ellie found out this chick was pregnant afterwards, and you could see like she was distressed. Abby on this other side, and now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like it switched at the end too, where you know Ellie became more of the bad guy. She kept like trying to chase them down, and Abby became more of the better person. But it's just like I felt like Abby was gonna be more of like a understanding person, because like it didn't fit. Like if she was pissed from the beginning because of all her friends dying in sequence, then I can understand why she goes finally finds Ellie and is like ready to like take them all on. Well, like she doesn't really.
Yeah, it was a little random. I do think that we are missing that. You know, she did see two of her bestest friends. I mean, she didn't like Mel that much, but you know, still like it had a big impact on her when she saw them dead. So obviously, it was just like fresh in her head. So I think she had a right to be like as mad as she was right there. And I really did appreciate how she didn't kill Dina, right? Like, it looks like she was about to until Lev stopped her. Yeah, so. With that in mind, though, like I just think that, yeah, it would have been nice to have a little bit more build up there. Like I definitely, it would have been nice to have that. Like I like to use the phrase dichotomy between like her seeing Ellie slowly take out like all her friends through her campaign, while also having to save this kid, and then having the constant pull to go find Ellie or keep helping this kid. Until at the end, Owen and Mel's death would have been enough to kick her over the edge and be like, all right, hold on. We gotta go find Ellie now. Like, this is it. So I think that would have been a good way to go about it. Again, I just feel like the game could have benefited a lot from just reordering certain things. I think what was there was perfect. Joey Olson, thank you for joining our video here in our chat here today. We're glad to have you. What's up, Joey? Hey, leave some questions about The Last of Us if you played it at all. If not, then just feel free to continue to enjoy our stream. But Yellow Flash God, we really appreciate some of your questions and comments there, man. Like I think you just really helped to add some of these discussions here. It's helped a lot, and honestly, like it's helped to expand on a couple things that we didn't even think about. And I think that's super helpful. I mean, we still have like I definitely anticipated to keep going for the full hour and a half if you guys are still free. I still have a couple of things that I think are worth talking about. But what would you guys like to see from a third game, and do you think there should be a third game?
I think there is going to be a third game, just because based on the sales, like this is the best selling game I think
this beats
of PlayStation 4, right?
Spider-Man was number one up until this, yeah.
I know most likely they could go in the direction of Abby and Lev and that relationship in the third game being very similar to the first game. I feel like that's gonna be a huge thing, and Ellie sort of could be like the person that teams up with them at some point. And I heard someone talk about this as well. And like at the end of the game, like Ellie could sacrifice her life to like find the cure and like be full circle, like make her life mean something because of everything she lost and gained. But honestly, like I still look at this game, and I don't look at this as a sequel. I feel like this is like some April Fool's like joke, and like we're getting a
I would
sequel at some
disagree.
point. Like I wish, or at least, like I said, I wish this was the third game in the series. I wish there's one more or some kind of DLC or something that we had Joel and Ellie, just a little bit. Like I take 30 minutes, an hour, but like don't kill him off into like that. It's just I want that relationship. That's all I care about, man.
I get your frustration. I feel like, so for those of you who don't know me like in person or just in general, I haven't put out much about this yet, but like I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I mean, I'm Miles Morales, Spider-Man PS5. That's 100%. Why, if I had to choose, I'm getting both. But if I had to choose, I would get the PS5 this holiday because of that. So like, that is my jam. Like, Spider-Man is my thing. So I'm always trying to like when I see the negative stuff, instead of just like tuning it out, I try to look at it and be like, okay, what if like Spider-Man made some of these similar choices? Like, how would I react? But again, like this all comes back to like subverting expectations. Like, at what line does that become too much to cross? Like, when do we not cross that line? And like, at what point do we say it's okay that, you know, because ultimately they're telling the story they want to tell. Like, and
Yeah.
I again, like, you look at the sales, like, though there's a lot of negative shit on Twitter and all these social platforms, it's the fastest selling PS4 game ever.
Well, that's
That's
because
and
a
a
lot of
huge
people
reason
don't
could be
release
the
stuff,
controversy.
so.
That's why I bought it. I was honestly kind of skeptical for a little bit, and then I bought it at launch because of the controversy. So did you,
I
David?
bought it because of you, so thanks a lot.
I've-
You lied to me.
what are your thoughts on the third game? This is that Ivan.
Oh, I mean, like David said, I think if there was a third game, it would mostly revolve around Abby and Lev. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of how Abby looks right now, or Ellie, but I think that there shouldn't be another one. I just think that it'd be better if it just ends like that, because based on what just happened, right? So I don't think, like, even if they make a third one, I don't think people would actually go out and buy it as they did for the second game, you know? Because if they don't have an Ellie and a Joel anymore, it's not really gonna feel like The
Yeah.
Last of Us, right? It's gonna feel like another game, similar world, similar gameplay, but different characters, you know? Like,
It's like a
well, you run
spin-off.
into-
What if Nathan Drake showed up?
what? That's not even The Last of Us.
That would sell the game.
It's like Uncharted 5 comes out and they kill Nathan Drake and,
I mean,
and like add
they
some
probably
random
will.
new character as like it's just like that's how it felt for a lot of people. It's just like I'm playing Last of Us 2, right? Like the hell am I playing?
Right.
So
Well, here's the thing, though. I thought that the way they killed Joel really early, and I get why that pissed people off, and it pissed me off. But because of all the flashbacks throughout the game, it made sense why they chose to do that. Like
Yeah, but,
the
I
Yellow
mean,
Flash
even
God
now,
said
I
they'd
don't
kill
feel
him
like
too. They're probably
flashbacks were
talking about he's probably talking about Nathan Drake. Anyway, the flashbacks made it like okay to have killed Joel that early because we still got more of him throughout the game, and it meant more because he's dead. Like that's in my opinion. I know a lot of people didn't agree with that. Some people would prefer Joel dying at the end of the game. I thought it made sense because it kickstarted the story. I thought but then they followed up with flashbacks, so people still got all that Joel and Ellie. Like, if not, like, David, I know when you were texting me, you said like every time you told me like something you liked about the game, it was always one of those flashbacks. So clearly those flashbacks were working. Like they made you appreciate their relationship. Like the relationship was there. It was just told in a way that people weren't expecting, and that's what I really loved about it. And that's why I think that it's a masterpiece, because like the story choices were just like they're not what you would have expected. If it was the other way around, my fear is like people would have been on the opposite side of the coin. They'd be like, this is too boring. All right, like they strayed away from that and decided to go the more controversial route. They probably knew that too, but ultimately, you know, it's the most sold PS4 game in all time. It's having the reverse impact from what the community wants to believe.
well, but that's an issue there because a lot of people don't know what's going on. A lot of people aren't watching the reviews, and we saw that with Disney Star Wars as well. You know, it went. There's a controversial moment in a video game or movie or whatever. It's usually always the next in the series that it takes the biggest hit. That's why I think the third game, if it does come out, it's gonna sell a lot poorly. And I don't think it's. I think they should leave it as the two. But really quick, I just want to talk about.
Yeah.
See, like this is where I'm conflicted because, like, yes. I want Joe and Ellie, like I want wanted more of those moments, and I think a lot of us did. But at the same time, like I get why they killed him off so early because of the flashbacks. Like it's just so hard because like you're in the middle of like I get why they did it, but it's also like I wanted that moment of like let's be with Joe and Ellie, like let's have that relationship. And I think that's the biggest like sort of strain on people is like that anger of like we came in expecting this, but we got this. And like I said, the whole story, the whole entire principle, everything, like it in movie format is a really good plot. Like when you really look at the actual like everything that goes on, it's a masterpiece. And I think Yellow Flash sums up as well. At one point, he says that it's just the way that the game structured and placed things.
I'm glad we agree on that.
Is what made is what made this last impactful. Like having a 6 to 11 hour section of Abby halfway through, where you gotta play just to catch back up. Like I'm playing the game a second time right now, right? I'm having fun for the first 3 hours of the game and part of that is because I skipped some of the cutscenes and like I just played to like play the game.
The game
and
itself.
I had no expectations. The game itself at that point becomes really fun. I will say the gameplay is fun. The second time around for me at least. The first time it was okay. This time I liked it a lot more. But because of the jump cuts, and I know there's an 11-hour section with Abby, it's just like I don't want to play through that again. Like there's section like the 3-hour section of the ending where you spend 30 minutes just on the farm with Ellie. Like I don't want to replay that again because it's so boring, it's so repetitive, and that's the biggest issue is the game is stretched out too long to make it a 30-hour game, and the pacing is so off because they cut off at a cliffhanger, and the pacing is what ruins the game as an experience that you could have really enjoyed if they just placed it a little differently, made it a little bit shorter. I think it would have been the best game to come out.
I guess like my final thoughts, and Ivan, it looked like you want to say something, so I'll let you share after that, and then we're gonna start wrapping some of this up here, but. When I initially played it, I know I texted both of you about this. I thought pacing was perfect for a 20-hour game because I played a lot of long games lately because games have started taking that route, and I just I finished it by Sunday. Like it came out Friday, I finished it by Sunday. It was long, but it never felt long. But that was the first playthrough, so I'm thinking about it. I didn't start New Game Plus. I'm not planning to because like I have other games I want to get to, but like. The whole reasoning, like, for that too is also it's long. Like, do I really want to go through 20 hours again? If I just want to play certain parts, if I don't want to play certain parts, I'll just go back and chapter select, which I'm happy they included that, and just choose specific missions, specific encounter or whatever. Like, and like that again begs a large question I brought up at the beginning of this. And it's not so much a question, but a question that like Sean Layden, head of PlayStation, is asking now, which I'm so glad people are finally identifying with that. Is just like longer games. Like, not every game has to be long. Not like Assassin's Creed. Like, I love the new games, but they're so long. I don't want to replay them. Like, I don't think I ever will replay them because they're too long. And like that's the problem with a lot of games. There's too much filler, and now it's sacrificing like replayability. Because who's gonna sit down and replay a 60-hour game when there's all these other big games coming out? Like that's the biggest problem with like really long games. And now it's also not sustainable from an industry standpoint because you have like you're selling this for $60, but you're putting in like billions and billions of dollars. I don't know how much a game budget is, but I'm assuming Last of Us is probably one of the most expensive games out there, right? So like they're funneling so much money into something that is like 20 hours long. Like it's pretty long. Like, but they're funneling so much money into it, and then they're getting $60 return from each player, no DLC or anything. So like. Or microtransactions, which is great. I don't want that. But, like, it's not sustainable from an industry standpoint. From a fan standpoint, there's a lot of people out there that will argue, like, long games are fine, and all power to you. Like, I'm not saying abolish long games, like, in general. But especially for things with narratives like this, really strong narratives like this, like we got shortened that because like there's all these people like us who are fans of the franchise. They grow up, and lives get busy, and like people like. Everybody will see this at a certain point in their lives. Like they don't want to spend this much time in one game. They want to finish it. They really do want to finish it, but it's difficult, time wise. So
that's why like this game, it feels more like rent this game or like buy it on sale, because you're only gonna play.
No, I would say buy it at full price. You guys need to experience it now.
Buy it.
I mean, you already probably spoiled the whole thing.
At this point, yeah, but like, there's nothing for you, or just watch someone play the game. Like, there's not much of a change in the experience because it is just a basic experience. Now, there's other games that do this well. Resident Evil 2, the remaster, the campaign's like, you could beat the campaign in like 2 hours, 5 hours at most the first time you play through, and then 2 hours. But the replayability, because it has four separate, like, it has the same campaign, but there's four separate things that, like, 4 separate campaigns that you can play, and each of them has small little changes to the game. That makes it replayable, and you want to play through all 4 campaigns. And that's something that they should be focusing more on, the replayability of games, because that's what I find the value is. If I can play the game over and over again, or if there's a new game plus, or I just want to play it again, that's a good game. But if I just play the game once and it's just like, okay, this was good, but I don't want to go through the same struggle of spending so much time and knowing sections that I'm really bored of to do it over again. Like Last of Us 1 was so good because it was still like 15 hours, but it was pretty short and it had a good story and you enjoyed some of it. There's still sections that I really hate, like the beginning's really slow, but like you can still replay that game multiple times and it's good. This game is so hard because it's like it forces you don't have the same emotions you play the second time. You sort of still feel anger at Joe dying, at least I did the second time, but then it's like you don't care. You just play the game to like play the game, but you're not experiencing the same thing because you just don't have the time to experience and deal with a 25-hour game to play it again for. That was the biggest issue. It's just like the replayability. Either make it replayable or make the experience
100%. Whoever has the sirens in the background, that's awesome. Ivan, I know you wanted to say something, and then I'm going to start wrapping things up because I know David and I specifically had some stuff we wanted to plug, and you can also plug stuff in for your starter YouTube channel as well. But
so I'm not trying to prolong anything, but
no, you're good.
I just wanted to point out that I think everyone should at least give us a chance. Like I think the stealth in this game is amazing, and I think that the gameplay is amazing because they included the dodge button. I think that David's on crack when he said that gameplay was terrible, but
the first time around, but the second time it's awesome.
Also, I would say the exploration in the game was pretty cool too. The scenery was one of the most beautiful graphics I've seen in a video game. So, like I said, I was give it a shot if I were you guys. Maybe like if you're not a fan or you're skeptical, probably wait until the game price drops, but definitely give it a shot.
If you even think you're not going to like it, if you go in that way, I mean, it could end up the other way, but chances are you aren't going to like it. So maybe do what David said, wait till it gets 20. Sony's usually pretty good about discounting their games, no matter how popular they are. I mean, Spider-Man with all its DLC was being sold for like 20 at some point. And then, as with what Ivan said, like if you really want to give it a shot, don't listen to the reviews. Come to your own opinion. Because look at David. Like, dude hated the game, and he's playing New Game Plus. So, like, you're going to find yourself, like, the game itself is really good. And I think what we've really kind of concluded here is just structure is kind of off. No matter what opinion you have, it's like the content there is pretty good. Like, it's not bad.
The more you think about the actual story, it makes a lot more sense. It's just now it's like, do you accept it, or are you still mad at the fact that, like, they took that relationship from the first one and sort of tore it apart? I think that's the biggest sort of like issue of like people not accepting the story, and between like hating and not hating it is like just that story sometimes becomes like there's points where it's unbelievable. Like Joel dying in that scenario, it doesn't feel like that's how he should have gone out. Like just knowing who he is. Then, like, Ellie losing her 2 fingers because, like, Abby bit her fingers off, like, that's physically impossible. So, like, I was just like, what the hell was going on? Like, I thought she bit off one of her fingers. I thought she was this guy right here, but she bit off two. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And so, like, there's parts in the game that, like, it becomes so unbelievable that it just breaks up the actual story itself and makes it hard for a lot of people to be like, yeah, this was a good game. But there are really good parts of the game. Like, there were, like I said at the beginning, and Ivan, you talked about it too. Like, we loved the beginning. I'm sure you did as well, Mohit. The beginning of the game was awesome. It was an amazing experience. It's just that, like, as it continues on is when it becomes such a roller coaster of, like, cuts and things that, like, it's not as enjoyable to go out. So, everyone make your own opinions. Everyone, again, like, I think you
Buy
made
based
a fair
on
point,
what you
like,
think you're gonna get. If you really, if $60 is a bucket in the water for you, like, dude, just pick it up. Form your own opinion. It's one of the biggest games of our time. Even if you don't think it's the best, it's one of the biggest. It's one of the most highly anticipated games of of this console generation. It's got to be played. It's got to be played. And that's why I think games should be shorter, to give people more of an opportunity to get to it, especially if you're busy. But yeah, with that being said, we're gonna wrap it up here. I know we all had some stuff we wanted to plug. We wanted to leave it toward the end here. For those of you who are new to my channel, I'll go ahead and start. First, I'm gonna put my Purdue hat on. Like, this is just for any of you if you're watching this right now or later down the line. I have this hat completely on the wrong way. Boiler up to all Purdue folk out there. I just graduated from here, and I'm starting my career just a little over a week now. Outside of that, just building out several different side hustles. And going strong on YouTube. This channel is the main. I'm not trying to make money from this at all because it's so hard to make money on YouTube. It's just like there's smarter people than me on here. But, like, the whole idea is there's certain experiences I've had just, like, all across the board that I would really like to share. This channel has always been a professional personal development channel for young professionals and entrepreneurs across the U.S. And even with the business I'm running right now, I make mistakes every single day. There's a lot I'm learning. And I think there's a lot of power to having our voices out there, and that's what a majority of this channel is about. But along with that, I personalize it with some of my interests. So, like this, I do a lot of gaming on the side. My ultimate dream is to start a game dev studio, but I need a lot of capital for it, which is why I'm not doing it right now. And until then, I'm just keeping up with the industry by playing some of the biggest games out there is something I love to do. And if you look back at some of my videos, I've done some of this in the past, but not to this level. I really enjoyed this discussion here. I would like to do more of this. So if you really did like this, and if you would like to see more of this type of content on here, an equal amount of this alongside some of that young professional stuff, definitely leave a like, leave a comment. There's clearly some comments going on in the chat, and I really appreciate that. But leave some feedback on what you'd like to see, what could be improved, and what I'm doing great. And I'll definitely work hard excuse me, to continue bringing that to you guys. I need some water. But outside of that, definitely check out some of my other content as well, because I'm working really hard just to, again, just provide some value wherever I can for people who are driven, and especially introverts like myself who grew up and had a complete 180 change over the course of college, and just want to be able to provide some value back to like-minded people. So with that being said, hit that like button, subscribe, leave some comments in that drop down below, and check out some of my other videos. I'll go ahead and let David talk and kind of plug some of his stuff.
Oh boy, that was the longest plug I've ever heard in my life. I'll make this short for you guys, all right? I mean, you don't need to know too much about me. I'm 22. I finished DePaul. Blah, 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 blah. As for YouTube channel, so my YouTube channel is going through a little bit of rebranding. It was more of an entrepreneurship business structure, but now we're actually going to focus more on stuff like this, like anything I experience I want to talk about. So there's going to be a couple more Last of Us 2 reviews and talks that are going to come out as video formats for this channel, because I think there's a lot of things to just, so much you can talk about, as well as this live stream. And then besides that, I mean, it's just sort of a piece of my life. So there's unboxings, tech reviews, as well as just adventure. I recently bought a GoPro, so we're going to do some fun things here, record some fun action trips, and we took a motorcycle road trip to one of the state parks here in Illinois, and so record that and make some fun videos. So if you guys want to check that out, just type in David Mechura, which I'll type into the comment section or somewhere for you guys to check that out. I'm the first person you see because I'm the only one with my name, because I'm special. That being said, guys, again, make sure you like Mohit's channel. Make sure you subscribe to
Yeah, I'll
his
leave links
content.
to both of ours below. Ivan, I know you're doing a little bit of something on YouTube. You're definitely a little all over the place there, so I don't know if you came down to a final plan there. But if you want to talk a little bit about your channel, I'm going to put in the links below, and people could check out some of your stuff.
Yeah, so like I said from before, my name is Ivan. I go to college at DuPage. Currently a criminal justice student. I'm also taking up Homeland Security as well as a degree. So my YouTube channel kind of started off rocky. It's kind of shaky, a little bit random, like Mohit said. But eventually, I found a platform, and I'm trying to make videos based on law enforcement and as well as the military. In case any of you guys are interested in joining, I have some advice for you guys. Um, I might throw in a few videos over there about what's happening about in today's world, considering that it's happening in 50 states and like I believe 15 other countries, which is insane. So yeah, I was thinking about making a video about law enforcement today and today's world and how I see it affecting everybody in general.
100%. Yeah, I think that one thing Ivan's always done a really good job on, and I think that I've as a friend always wanted your channel to kind of go that route, is just being a little bit more political. And we all have different voices to share, and I think it's important to kind of speak up on some things. I have a video coming out in about a week or so that's going to touch on some things that have been happening here recently. But outside of that, I think that Ivan, since you're very passionate about this stuff, I think he would be the person to follow, especially for especially those of you that like to listen to different perspectives and like to hear things that aren't always common out there on Twitter, aren't always like commonly used and talked about. So yeah, along with that, I recognize they got a little long, but this is our first time doing it. We really appreciate everybody that's kind of stuck through some of this stuff, even if that's our little brothers too. But like it's been a pleasure to put this stream on. We really enjoyed the game in different ways at different levels, except for David. And like it's great to talk about this stuff. So let us know if you'd like to see some more of this stuff in the future. And once again, all power to you guys. I especially on my channel, my content is all geared towards what people want. So just go ahead and let me know. Leave some comments. Message me directly. Let's get a conversation going. But aside from that, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream there. Peace out, guys. Have a great day, and girls.
Take care,
everybody.
Guys.
Gender neutral. It's awesome.
Woo!
I don't know how to finish this. I'm using an external software here.
This is gonna be the last of this discussion, part 2.